until they came out with this big article where the Mormon Church almost got their not-for-profit status taken away because they were giving so much money to what? Anti-gay marriage legislation.
Anti-gay.
So
that's when I said, I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, that's when I said, okay, I can't be associated anymore. Because I was like, then actually spending
millions
poor people's money.
Yeah. So that we can't get married to who we
so
want.
that, yeah, to be against humane, like an equal rights, equal in marriage, like stopping marriage, stopping people from getting married. It's crazy.
Absolutely. So that's kind of where I drew the line. I was like, I think, I was not going to church, and but I was still paying a tithing because I was like, I believe, there's a lot of the principles that I believe in, like, eating well and being good to people and providing service and giving some portion of your income towards charity. I think those are all good things, and my big goal was not to like throw the baby out with the bathwater, or that's right. Because that's what I had seen so many of my other gay Mormon friends do. Like, they had gone to such an extreme to find their identity that they had lost not only their own identity, their true identity, but they had sort of lost some of the good that they could have taken from the church. And I think everybody definitely has their own trials and their own path about how to figure it out, but to completely just go the opposite direction and sleep with everybody and do drugs, and I knew that would be like, that would actually land me back in the church, and that's not really where I felt I needed to be, because I felt like that was like acting out behavior instead of like just dealing with being really lost and kind of depressed a little, but dealing with things on a more like real level of like, okay, what do I really believe? What do I really want, So, and the other thing that I have to say about the church is that still to this day, like, I have never had an actual negative experience. Like, there was no bishop who told me something negative, or a member of the church, like, I would still go back there, and if I felt so inclined, and go to church, and, as long as I could, kind of be open. And I think in New York you can go to church and be like, yeah, I'm gay, this is my boyfriend. They're not going to like kick you out necessarily. They won't necessarily pass you the sacrament. But, I still to this day don't have any negative feelings towards the church. I have only positive, good thoughts.
But don't you think the people, like the Mormons here,
are different?
It's not, it's not that big a deal.
Like, it's so not a big deal.
All our straight friends, people who are really into the church, they don't care.
It's like really worthy Mormons. Even here in New York, it's so not an issue. I think
they're so like, they support you.
Yeah,
and they like, love that you're getting married.
And they're like, we get that we don't even know what the answer is, like the leaders of the church aren't even sure what to do about the whole thing. So I think that here there's a really progressive, evolved state of mind, and people have a really great comprehension and understanding. And I think, not that it doesn't kind of, go with my lifestyle, but I haven't gone back. For a while I didn't go back on purpose, and then now it's just sort of like, I don't know, now I'll get to this part. Now my partner Joe, I don't know that it would be something he would necessarily want to do, because I want to go somewhere where we both like to go to church and like the experience. So anyway, but so the I dated Sal for like about a little over 2 years, and it was a good relationship. I kind of think of it as a starter relationship in the sense that I didn't really know what I was looking for in a partner, and I don't think he did really either. But we were so drawn to each other for a need and a desire to love and to be loved. And, I think that the logistics of who we were as people didn't really work out, which then takes us to our breakup, which, was difficult, but I think it was sort of something that was coming. And which takes me to one of the weirdest times of my life, because I started to reflect on kind of where I had been up until that point, and I thought, basically I was born, and I had my parents to be responsible to, till I was, 18. At 18, literally 3 days before 18, I joined the Mormon Church, and I was responsible to, a certain code of ethics and a way of life for about 6 to 8 years. And literally from the Mormon Church, I went to a relationship, and I spent about a little more than 2 years in a relationship and was responsible to another person. And I actually found that I was extremely just sort of like reaching, because all I wanted to do was just get in another relationship right away, because, and I didn't even realize why, but I kind of took a while. I actually did start dating someone right away, like literally like 3 weeks later, and he was a gay Mormon who was kind of dealing with like, really wasn't sure what he was up to, and we weren't really the best match, but he was kind of in the same state. He had been with like his first boyfriend. They met at BYU. They were together like a few years, and he'd just gotten out of that a few months ago, and literally like we find each other and we have a good sexual chemistry, and we are just like, basically it was like we kind of picked up where we left off with our boyfriends, but without any history or emotional connection or understanding of each other. And so that kind of ended oddly. And then when that was over, then that was kind of when I was like sort of soul searching, like, well, wait, who am I? What do I want? Like, and I kind of felt like these wounds were just sort of like gaping open, like, you need to like put some balm, you need to put some Band-Aids on these things, because they had just sort of been like being, there weren't things that had been resolved. And I think that was a really interesting year and a half that I spent sort of like casually dating some people. I didn't date a lot, and I had like my first one night stand, which I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I'm doing this. And I'm kind of a conservative girl anyway. But coming from the Mormon background definitely was like, has definitely kept me much more to the conservative side. But just to even have a one night stand was like, I kind of had to, at the end of it I was like, okay, well, what does this mean, and am I okay with this? Like, what can I call like any sexual encounter? Like, does it just have to be in a relationship? Does it, can I explore this? And I did a little bit. I think I could have a little bit more. But I think there was definitely kind of a fear of like, well, I don't want to go down that road too much, because there's always been a sort of fear factor with me of like, I don't want to be like those Mormons that I knew who end up like male prostitutes, and I mean, really, there's no judgment of, oh yeah, yes, little shout out.
He has a book, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has
a play.
Yeah, he wrote a play. And, I mean, not that and I have zero judgment towards someone like Stephen. Yeah, I really don't have any judgment towards him, because I think that was his path. I think he was married and had kids, and I'm like, God, for God's sakes, at least I never got married. But I didn't. I wanted to avoid that, and so like I think I was also like hypersensitive to like not being too promiscuous or anyway. And I that was a great time though. I really felt like I really came to know who I was now, because there was just always this deflecting of like, it was always about not being gay. I think my life up until being in a relationship, and then when you're in a relationship, it's about, okay, maintaining a relationship and communicating and like figuring out problems and all these things, and then when I was single, it was finally just about me and like really defining what it was I wanted to be and who I was. And like I said, I think at the end I kind of did a little circle, but I kind of came back to like the same things I had in my head sort of theorized as like, yeah, I'll drink, but not a lot. I'm not a big drug person. I don't want to sleep around that much. I do want a relationship. Anyway, and I kind of thought that I was sort of like at peace with the church and with being gay, but I would definitely have these days of like, and they would come maybe once every 2 months of like, am I really doing the right thing with my life? Am I going to end up like going to hell after all this? And even though my emotions and spirit had sort of started to fuse, and my mind had started to understand like, that this, I think being true to yourself is actually one of the most valuable lessons to learn.